Hello. I'm going to be telling you my personal story. It's in very, very rough draft right now. The ending especially, I'm not even sure what I'm going to say. I have an idea and I'm going to try to flub through it, but we'll see. The rest of it's alright. We'll see how it goes. Okay. So, my dad's an astronomer, and he used to work for the U.S. Naval Observatory, which is a pretty cool job. And it comes with some interesting perks. For one, there are stars in the southern hemisphere that you can't see in the northern hemisphere. And this led us to move to New Zealand in 1987 when I was 7. And we stayed there 5 years, which was awesome. And when I say New Zealand, I have a feeling that most of you probably don't know too much about it. Maybe you know that there's a northern island and a southern island. Maybe you know of the exotic wildlife like the kiwi and the kea. Or maybe you know of the indigenous Maori population. That's very interesting. But I have a feeling that most of you, when I say New Zealand, you think Lord of the Rings. So you probably think of majestic mountains, and glaciers, and great rainforests, and just like an Eden of Earth. Now, is New Zealand actually like that? Hell yeah it is. New Zealand is awesome. And it was great to live there. Of course, as a kid, I didn't really care about the majestic mountains or any nature. What I remember the most is the epic playgrounds. There were structures that were like 3 stories tall that if you climbed up, there was only a simple guardrail stopping you from falling to your doom. And there was also this thing called a flying fox, and it's pretty much just a pole on a zip line. And you have to grip onto it for dear life, because if you let go, you'll be dashed to pieces on the trees. It was, needless to say, playing in New Zealand came with a little bit of danger. And what was even better was one of the most dangerous structures was in my own school. It was this huge boat made out of solid concrete. It was about, I'd say, 10 feet tall, maybe 30 feet long. And me and my friends would play on it all the time. We used to like to run on one end, jump up on the hut, jump up on the other end, jump off the boat, and do like a barrel roll on the ground. Oh, it was great. Other times, if we were feeling really adventurous, we'd jump straight from the hut onto the ground, like jumping over the rail and everything. It was a lot of fun. I kind of messed up my knees, but, you know, it was still worth it. So anyway, even though it was super dangerous, I never heard of anybody actually getting hurt there, except for one person, an American, me. So, like I said, me and my friends would always play there. And one of my friends, Sean, was mentally handicapped. In the school that I went to, they had a building for the mentally handicapped, and then, you know, they taught everyone else at the actual school. But during recess, we all came together and we could all play together. And this has changed my life forever. Like I said, one of my friends was mentally handicapped, and that's just given me a different outlook on the mentally handicapped, and just on people in general. It's made me very good with dealing with people, and especially with mental problems, which is great working in a public library. Anyway, so this time we were playing a game of war. Now, if you've ever played a game of war, you know it's a little different than actual war. Actual war, you're shooting real guns, and you know when you get hit. In a game of war, you don't know who shot who, and it's just chaos. So this was no exception. So me and Sean, we had our fingers loaded, and we were up on the boat. And I was hiding behind the hut, looking over. I came out and I shot Sean. Pow, 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 pow. And Sean turned around and he shot me. Pow, 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 pow. And I said, Sean, I hit you. I shot you first. And Sean said, no, I hit you first. And we went back and forth and arguing and arguing. And it just got really heated. And then Sean just had enough and he pushed me. Now, I've told you guys before that I jumped off this boat hundreds of times. I've never done it backwards and upside down. So he pushed me and I kind of stumbled, and then, you know, there was a railing here and I went over. And this is where, you know, your life flashes before your eyes. And I remember that fall to the ground lasting minutes instead of probably half a second that it lasted. So when I did hit the ground, I hit it with my arm, and I hit it hard. I knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't think it was too bad. It didn't hurt too much. It was mostly the shock that got me. So I jumped back up and I was yelling at Sean. My brother saw me, you know, they were going away, and he just thought that, he went to the same school I did, he thought that I was just, you know, acting. I was just playing it up for the war. So he didn't help me at all, and he went off to keep fighting the battle, and I made a beeline over to the nurses. So the nurse knew instantly that there was something wrong as well. So she called my parents, and it was busy. So they waited. They called again. It was still busy. You know, about an hour passes, and it's still busy. And they didn't know what was going on. Little did they know that my parents were one of the first people in New Zealand to have a modem. I don't know if you guys remember dial-up modems, but if you called somebody on a dial-up modem, it stayed busy. So they're calling and calling and calling, and it just stays busy the whole time. And finally they say, oh, go sit outside and wait there. So I went outside, and there was this bench, you know, a little railing that I could rest my arm on so I wouldn't move it. And this part of the story is not that interesting, but you know how you have these memories that just get stuck in your head forever, and you remember them in complete detail for the rest of your life. Well, this is one of those memories. So I was sitting there with the railing, and this kid was playing with a little car, and he was getting closer and closer to my arm. And I'm sitting there, and I was like, hey kid, don't ride on my arm, it's broken. And he looks at me, he looks at the car, he looks at me, and he looks at the car, and then he comes around, and he drives around my arm. Anyway, so that was the first time I even mentioned that my arm was broken. I didn't even think it was broken. I just wanted him to not ride on it. Because it didn't hurt when I moved it, you know. No, it didn't hurt when I kept it still, and only hurt when I moved it. But, of course, it was broken. So eventually, about 3 hours later, the school did get in touch with my parents. And, you know, they raced over, and my mom was super pissed that it took them that long, and why didn't they take me to the emergency room right away? And the school was super pissed with them being on the phone. Why the hell are they on the phone for 3 hours? But, you know, needless to say, I went to the emergency room. And another great thing about New Zealand is universal health care. So they set my arm, put it in a cast, and everything was free. And, you know, for 6 weeks I tormented my friends by knocking them over the head with my cast, and then it came off, and then I was back to jumping off that boat again. That was great. But if this had happened in the United States, it would have been a very different story. For one, there would be no concrete boat to jump off of. The mere thought of the danger that possessed would stop them from ever building such a structure. Also, my parents could have probably sued the school if it was in the United States. I mean, not only did I fall from a structure that shouldn't have been there in the first place, they also didn't take me to the emergency room. They also allow, you know, mentally handicapped to play with the other kids. You know, these are all sort of litigations that a school in the United States would have to worry about, and in New Zealand it was no problem. My parents actually talked to the principal afterwards, and they made it sound like breaking limbs is just part of growing up. You just break your arms. So that was it. And the reason why I'm telling this story is that growing up in another culture really affected me, and affected how I live in this culture. And it's just interesting how, and this is the part that I need to figure out, how growing up in a different culture gives you a different worldview. And, like, you know, I love the United States, I love living here, but I really hold that dear to my heart that I was able to do that, and it's made me the person that I am today. Thank you for hearing my story, and it will be better when I tell it.